Hey tubers, welcome back for another adventure. If one takes a minute and says, what should I look at when buying a used quad, particularly a non-running used quad? Where's the place that you could get in the most trouble the most quickly? A lot of times a used quad that somebody already went into the motor, right? Somebody's already opened up the top of the motor or taken apart to some extent. Normally those projects are where you get the best deal. But they're also the projects that you're at the most risk on. Let me give you an example. This little 110cc two-wheeler here. It's a China thing running. It's worth, you know, somewhere between $400 and $500. I got it. I bought my jump pack. I made sure the starter was good. I put it into gear. The back wheel was off. I put it into gear and made sure that I couldn't turn the sprocket. You know, I pulled the clutch in, made sure the clutch worked. So I'm like, wow, you know, $80. How could I lose, right? I'm gonna, I'm gonna carry this one across the line. I'm gonna make bucks there. Turns out it came with a back wheel that was new, but the wrong one. Okay, so all right, I'm looking at a back wheel. How could I go wrong? Turns out I really couldn't get the one they gave me to go on there successfully. It just wasn't working out right. Also, the one I got from them was missing the brake disc, and so I said, all right, let me just buy a new eBay back wheel tire assembly. I managed to find that one, and that was 75 bucks. So 80, 75. We're still doing pretty good. But I didn't have the caliper. I didn't have the axle to go through the wheel. I didn't have the chain temperature tensioner. The wheel that presses up against the wheel, that chain tensioner. I didn't have the wheel adjusters, the two adjusters that pull the wheel back to also adjust the chain. Anyway, with this bike at $10, $20, 2 weeks to wait for this part to show up, 2 weeks to wait for that part to show up. Eventually, I got so frustrated with it, I put it up on the shelf. At this point, I think I have more or less everything to put it back together again, but until my frustration evaporates, I'm like nowhere. By the way, once I'm done with all that, right, I also put a carburetor on it. I need to do the air filter. It's an electric start, so it needs a battery. It needs a wire harness for the electric starter. I mean, this thing just keeps going and going and going. And once again, when you're looking at a bike that's worth between $400 and $500, the amount of time, I've had to replace, I had a spare back shock from something else, but I had to put a new back shock on it. This thing just keeps going and going and going. It's like the bottomless pit. Even when I'm done with it, the kickstand is missing. So I either have to fake a kickstand and do a purchase. It is going to be, I have most of the plastic to put over it, but not quite all of it. So once again, for what I'm describing to you, right, $400 or $500, maybe $375, there's no room. You really, really have to make sure that you have all the parts. The ones you get the best deals are the ones somebody took apart a little bit or a lot, but once again, the parts could put you underwater. Second thing, this bike here, it came through, it was complete, looked nice, everything was good, right? I brought it home. I checked the oil. I didn't check the oil there because, once again, it had all the plastic on it. It was complete. Nothing missing. I mean, aftermarket exhaust, the whole bit. I mean, beautiful. Air cleaner with the cover on it, right? Nothing missing. Sock over the air cleaner. I mean, I noticed it was missing the back brake caliper. But other than that, I mean, just really nice. The wheels are tight, everything like that. I got it home, sat for a couple of days, then I started working on it. I put oil in it, started leaking oil instantly. You know, now what is the oil leak? I started it up, sounded sounds like it needs a timing chain, like it's about to throw a timing chain. I mean, just horrible sounds from you know, between the valve area and the timing chain. So probably this is probably an OEM. It's probably an original motor and all, but once again, got to pull the engine and do a timing chain on it. I think I did about 650 on this one. So if you, with the plastic on it, and it's you know, pretty good looking and all that other stuff, assuming I don't have a hole in one of the cases, I have to do a timing chain. So a timing chain, I don't know, by the time you buy the chain, gaskets, call it $75 worth of materials, takes me to $7 1/4 plus a lot of labor. I mean, we're looking, by the time you get the bolts loose, get the engine out, get the head off of it, then you got a decision to make. Do you want to take the side of the engine off, or do you want to split the chain and kind of Mickey Mouse your way back around up with it? But once again, you're starting to get into some heavy money and a lot of time. So this one, if once again I'm at 650 plus the parts for the timing chain, right, takes me up to $7 1/4. I think back calipers are somewhere around $50, right? $7.75. I don't know if for the back brake, hopefully the master's still good. If it's not, you know, probably another $100 on it. So this thing running, once again, probably $1,200 to $1,500. But you can see how the numbers are adding up very, very quickly. The one I just brought home from North Adams, got a good deal on that, right? $650 or $450 on that one. We got it started, right? It's got good tires all the way around. The frame looks good, right? By the way, always check the VINs, especially on the Hondas, Yamahas, and so forth, right? It's got a good VIN. All those things positive. So I probably got $450 worth of parts. Started it up. It started. And I'm aware the guy put a new bore into it. He honed the bore, put the same piston into it, and just put a set of standard OEM rings on it. Not great work, but you know, okay, that's what he did, right? So just a hone and ring job, and once again, he went with standard everything. But the engine doesn't sound right. It sounds tight. Starting it also seemed a little bit tight. And what I mean by tight is if you took out the plug and everything and turned it over, these things without a plug in them and you're not in gear or anything, should turn over very easily. It should be, you know, well-oiled machine here, folks. It seemed tight. Not tight enough where it didn't start, not tight enough where the starter had to go around, but it seemed tight. The problem you could have with that, if somebody's been in the motor, if they didn't hook up the piston correctly to the to the crank and it's too tight on there, that means you're not getting oil there. So you'll be out romping it, but sooner or later you're going to throw a rod, right? If you throw a rod, you destroy the entire engine. So you kind of like Why is this thing tight? Is it a little tight because it sat around? Is it a little tight because he did rings and they got to break in? Why is it tight? And if you know, you go into the engine, it's a lot of work. But on the other hand, if you don't go into the engine and you throw a rod and hand grenade the engine, you're done. So once again, I only have $450 invested in that, but it's easy to get into trouble. General rules, no matter what. When you look at these things, I'm going to buy one, especially one that's not running. Make sure you're complete. Secondly, right, if you're not complete, but you happen to have a few others for spares, and maybe you're going to take one apart and mix it and match it and with some other stuff you already have, okay, you're not risking, you know, you're not too far out on the limb. Okay, but if it's the only bike you have and every part, every piece you need to buy, you can find yourself in a heap of trouble. Some of these things are fairly common. The Honda 300EX, the ATC 200, 200S, 185. A lot of these things, there's a lot of them around. So you could get parts. You could get parts through eBay. You could get parts, you know, sometimes you show up at the local scrapyard and you'll see one sitting there. You could get parts. In the China stuff, for the China stuff, for the 110cc motor, fairly common. The GY6 motor, fairly common. If you get to the bigger bore, water-cooled stuff, it's hard to find parts for that stuff, right? Kawasaki. This is a 250 Mojave. It was absolutely beautiful, right? It's like trying to take the pretty girl to the prom, and then you find out bad personality. That's what this one had. Beautiful to look at. The engine jump time. This is a 4-valve engine. The head assembly off of hopefully a good used engine is at the minimum of $200. I think I paid $450 for this. I think, don't know, don't recall, but it's also water cooled. So $450, timing chain $75 with a bunch of gaskets. Am I going to completely take it apart, or am I going to, you know, break the chain, put it in there and put it back together again, right? So once again, decisions to make, money to spend. But let's say I go easy. But in the meantime, I got to get the radiator out of there. I got to get the coolant all taken apart. Once you tear it all apart and do that, you got to make sure when you put it together again, you have no coolant leaks, internal or external. You finally get it running and you're running around. You got to make sure the fan works. Generally speaking, I do not recommend water-cooled all-terrain vehicles. I get a deal cooking for Yamaha, and you guys will see it when the deal closes. Probably make some videos with the you know, with some of our YouTube friends when we do all of that. It's for a Yamaha. It's taken apart. I know that at the minimum I need the head. It's got the piston and rings and all that, so I know I need the head. It was taken apart before the person I'm getting it from got it, so you always worry about, do I have the guide for the timing chain? Do I have the little bolt that bolts the guide for the timing chain to the head and stuff like that? One could find themselves spending a fortune. It's also a Yamaha, so I don't have any spare parts for it. It's a very good deal for me to get it, but what does it take to bring it back? So back to that cautionary note, right? I don't have spares, right? I'm going to have a couple $100 into it right away. Given I'll have a couple $100 into it, and the price of it, if it doesn't work out, I could probably package it up and move it over the side and not lose much. But cautionary tale, it was taken apart. And by the way, I could put the head into it, put it all back together again, and get the surprise that it has other problems with the motor, right? I got no first gear, I got no second gear, the centrifugal clutch is acting up. I think it's a 5 through an automatic. It's a 4-wheel drive, so I can have U-joint problem. You know what I mean? So it's very, very easy to find your way into problems. Back to it, just a quick reminder. If you're buying any of these things, make sure they're complete. If they're not complete, pay accordingly. If somebody wants to give you one, take it. But realize, even for free, it's possible to lose money on them. I got to keep pointing to this Honda two-wheeler here, this pit bike. I machined a bunch of my own parts for the back of it. I had to do some alterations to get that wheel on. It turns out it had a special back wheel. It just a money pit. Be careful that you don't fall into one of those. If I would have just stopped and said, hey, I paid $80, turns out the engine's good, I got an engine for $80, how could I go wrong? I would have been 100 miles out in front, right? Put the engine on Craigslist or whatever for $150. I mean, sell it, you made money, right? Just part out the rest of the bike, you're in good shape. But once I started to try to piece it together, it just turned into the bottomless pit. Make sure you're complete. If you do get a bike that's not complete, try to make it a common one, right? And this is going to sound strange, even for some Yamahas and like these Kawasaki's and all. Believe it or not all the parts are available. Once again, for the Honda 200, TRX 200 SX, 200S, 185, ATC 185, these 300 EXs, a lot of parts available. The 250X over there, not so much. They're out there, but not so much. I need side covers for a parts engine that I have. I'd like to bring it back together again, and I'm having a tough time kind of finding this. So once again, the parts for the 250X, not necessarily all over the place. The TRX 200 SX, they like to throw the chain and destroy this side cover. You can't buy those. You can't get a side cover for the older units. The used ones were all cracked up and destroyed, damaged from throwing the chain. And the new one, however many they put on the shelf 30 years ago, are all gone. So you can't find one. And if you do find one, yeah, you'll find one, but you won't find 2 or 3. So on the 200SX, nice bike and all, but keep your chain tight, take care of it, because if it throws the chain and damages the engine, you're going to have trouble getting parts. People do patch them up, that liquid steel or whatever you call it, that putty, you mix 2 pieces together, jam it into the holes. You might patch it up enough to get it to go. I don't like running stuff like that, but if it were my first bike and I were a kid, I'd be running stuff like that. These things, the TRX 250s, even though they're older, it seems that there's a million of them out there and there's a lot of parts to be found. They use the same stuff as the 250 Big Red, shaft drive. Just there does seem to be plentiful parts out there for them. That was a good deal, and he paid $90 for it. I should finish it up. So I hope this helps you. If you're out there and you're looking at the used stuff, especially the non-running used stuff, make sure that it's complete. And even then, you're probably going to spend more money fixing it than you thought you were. So make sure whatever price you pay for it, you have enough headroom to make up for the extra money you're going to spend. If anybody wants to comment on this video, I'm sure that for people who do this, there's going to be a bunch of folks who say, oh my God, did I lose money on this? Pick your comments, right? I lost money on this and that and the other thing, and this is, you know, I thought all it needed was a, you know, a chain, and the next thing I know I needed valves, and I couldn't get the valves, so I had to get the valves from Australia because that's the only place I could get them, and they cost me a fortune. And you know, I have a $300 machine that I have $800 in, or I have a $800 machine that I have $1,200 in, you know. So share your horror stories. I'm sure a bunch of people will enjoy them. We'll all feel better about ourselves that, oh man, I'm not the only one who you know, stepped on glass here. I got a bunch of other people who step on the glass right with me. Everyone, I want you to keep your feet down, keep your heads up, and I want you to get out there and enjoy each and every day. Take care, and we'll see you all again tomorrow. Bye now.